1950s, everyone wanted a piece of the American sports car market. It wasn't a big market, but it was where companies with limited production ability could make money. So naturally, some American brands attempted to get a piece of it. For 1951 and 52, the Crosley Hotshot was joined by the Supersport, the same car but with real doors and more power. The cars used an 85-inch wheelbase, were 137 inches long, and weighed 1,200 pounds. The Hotshot used a 27 horsepower, 724 cc, 44 cubic inch overhead cam inline bore, and 3-speed manual, which produced 36 horsepower and 37 pound-feet of torque in the Supersport. The SS was just over $1,000, or about $80 more than a Hotshot. Both combined accounted for about 700 cars a year. One could expect 60 in about 19 seconds, and a top speed of 80 miles an hour. In 1953, Chevrolet introduced the Corvette. Initially, it was only available with a 3.9-liter, 235 cubic inch, Blue Flame Straight 6, with 150 horsepower and 223 pound-feet of torque on a 2-speed Power Glide automatic. It was 167 inches long on a 102-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,900 pounds. Only 315 were made the first year. Starting price was $3,500, 60 came in just over 11 seconds, and top speed was just shy of 100. A year later, Kaiser came out with the Darren. It used a 2.6-liter, 161 cubic inch flathead inline 6 with 90 horsepower and 127 pound-feet of torque. Wheelbase was 100 inches, length 184, and weight 2,400 pounds. It cost $3,700, did 60 in the mid-14s, and could do nearly 95 miles an hour. Only 435 were made. In 1953, Curtis Craft introduced the 500S, or street version of the 500 race car. 30 were made over 3 years, and could be ordered with any of the big 3 V8s. They came with an aluminum and fiberglass body on a 98-inch wheelbase, and prices started just below $5,000. The Month's Jet was essentially just an extended version of the Curtis Craft Sport with a back seat, being 10 inches longer at 178 on a 113-inch wheelbase and weighing 4,000 pounds. Each car was sold at a $1,000 loss at $5,500 with either a Cadillac or Lincoln V8. It was perhaps more of a personal luxury car. In 1952, the Lincoln 5.2-liter produced 160 horsepower and 284 pound-feet of torque and moved the car to 60 in less than 13 seconds, with a top speed over 95. Introduced in 1951, the Nash-Healey was a Nash Ambassador drivetrain dropped into a sports car chassis, developed by British sports car maker Healey. The car gained a body by Pininfarina its second year and would win Le Mans in 1953. A 53 Le Mans hardtop was 181 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase and weighed 3,200 pounds. 162 of the $6,000 car were made that year. The 4.1-liter inline 6 was up to 140 horsepower and 230 pound-feet of torque, moving the car to 60 in under 11 seconds and a top speed of over 110. For 1953, Cunningham introduced the road-going C3. It started at $8,000 using a 331 cubic inch Chrysler Firepower Hemi, modified to produce 220 horsepower and 312 pound-feet of torque. Backed by a 3-speed Presto-Matic, 60 arrived in just over 7 seconds, and the top speed was near 120. Wheelbase was 107 inches, overall length was 168 inches, and weight 3,500 pounds. Only 25 were produced over 3 years. The British invasion gave us the Singer 4AD Roadster from 1951 to 1955, initially with a 48 horsepower 1500cc inline 4, and later a twin-carb 58 horsepower version was available. A base model could do nearly 75 miles an hour, got to 60 in about 23.5 seconds, and got 22 miles per gallon. Lotus introduced its first production car in 1952, the Mark VI, predecessor to the legendary 7, with parts sourced from the Ford Prefect. It weighed less than 1,000 pounds, and the 1,200cc inline 4 produced 50 horsepower and 57 pound-feet of torque, moving the car to 60 in 15 seconds and speeds over 90. The new MGTD of 1950 was dubbed too American to be a real sports car by MG loyalists. It was on a 94-inch wheelbase, was 145 inches long, and used a 1.3-liter inline-4 with 57 horsepower. It got almost 22 miles per gallon, and 30,000 sold, mostly in the U.S. The early Sunbeam Alpine of 1953 ran on a 98-inch wheelbase, was 169 inches long, and weighed 2,900 pounds. It used a 2.3-liter, 80-horsepower inline-4, and top speed was just under 100. It cost $2,900, and less than 1,600 were made. Also in 1953, AC introduced the Ace on a 90-inch wheelbase with length of 152 inches and weighing just over 1,900 pounds. The 2-liter overhead cam inline-6 had 85 horsepower and 105 pound-feet of torque, and one was tested at over 100 miles an hour, hitting 60 in 11.5 seconds and getting 21 miles per gallon. Morgan would introduce the Plus 4 in 1950 with their last significant styling update of the century. They used a 96-inch wheelbase, were 145 inches long, and weighed 1,900 pounds. Initially with a 2,100cc inline-4 produced by Standard, but in 1953 switched to a Triumph 2-liter. The Standard engine produced 68 horsepower and 111 pound-feet of torque and could do 85 miles an hour, while the Triumph engine had 90 horsepower and 117 pound-feet of torque. A later version with a purchase price just over 1,000 pounds was tested at over 100 miles an hour, hitting 60 in under 10 seconds and getting 23 miles per gallon. The Triumph TR2 came out in 1953. It had an 88-inch wheelbase, was 151 inches long, and weighed 2,100 pounds. The 2-liter inline-4 had 90 horsepower and moved the car to 60 in 12 seconds. It could get 29 miles per gallon and hit 100 miles an hour. It cost 900 pounds and just over 8,600 were produced. The Austin-Healey 100 of 1953 was named for its top speed of over 100 miles an hour. It used an Austin 2.7-liter inline-4 with 90 horsepower and 144 pound-feet of torque, and was capable of getting to 60 in just over 11 seconds. It had a 90-inch wheelbase, was 152 inches long, and weighed 2,000 pounds. A test car did 106 miles an hour, got 19 miles per gallon, and cost under 1,100 pounds. The Allard K3 of 1952 and 53 shipped to the U.S. without an engine, allowing your choice of Cadillac, Chrysler, or Ford V8. An example with a 3.6-liter Ford V8 with 95 horsepower and 160 pound-feet of torque and weighing 2,900 pounds did a mid-15-second 0 to 60 and reached speeds over 95 miles an hour. A 331 Chrysler Hemi version would have been much faster. They were 177 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase, but only 62 were made. The 1950 Lea-Francis 2.5-liter sports roadster had 100 horsepower and 142 pound-feet of torque from its inline-4. It was 165 inches long on a 99-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,600 pounds. Top speed was over 95, and 60 came in under 13 seconds. 77 were made. The 1953 Bristol 404 had a 2-liter inline-6 with 105 horsepower and 112 pound-feet of torque. It was 173 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase at 2,400 pounds. It took 11.5 seconds to reach 60 and topped out near 110. Aston Martin's DB2 was made from 1950 to 1953. It had a 99-inch wheelbase, was 163 inches long, weighing 2,600 pounds. The 2.6-liter dual overhead cam inline-6 had 105 horsepower and 133 pound-feet of torque, moving the car to 60 in 12.5 seconds, nearly reaching 105 miles an hour. The Alvis-Healey 3-liter was made from 1950 to 1954, but only 28 were made. It was 174 inches long on a 102-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,800 pounds. The 3-liter inline-6 had 106 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque, getting to 60 in less than 13 seconds on its way to just beyond 95. There was the Frazer-Nash Targa Florio of 1952 of which 14 were made, the last 5 with updated styling. Named in honor of their 1951 win in the race of the same name, it used a 2-liter Bristol engine with 100 to 120 horsepower. Jaguar's XK120 got power increases for 1951 and 53, bringing it up to 180 horsepower and 203 pound-feet of torque. Also added for 53 was a drop-head coupe, in case you couldn't decide between the coupe and roadster. All on a 102-inch wheelbase at 173 inches long and about 3,000 pounds. It could do 60 in 8.5 seconds and still top 120. From France, Simca offered the 9 from 52 to 54. The 1200cc inline 4 had 50 horsepower and 64 pound-feet of torque, moving the car to 60 in just over 20 seconds on its way to 80. It had a 96-inch wheelbase, was 163 inches long, and weighed 2,100 pounds. The Delahaye 235 of 1951 to 54 used a 3.6-liter inline 6 with 150 horsepower and 224 pound-feet of torque. It was on a 116-inch wheelbase, was 179 inches long, and weighed 3,200 pounds. Considered both a luxury car and a GT, as it could do 60 in the low 11s and reach 110 miles an hour. Fossil introduced the Vega in 1954, introduced with a 4.5-liter DeSoto Firedome V8 with 180 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. Wheelbase was 104 inches and length 180 inches at a hefty 3,800 pounds. Top speed was near 115 and 60 came in under 11 seconds. The first post-war Bugatti, the 101, was based on the Type 57. 8 were made, mostly in 51 and 52. It had a long 130-inch wheelbase and was 205 inches long and 3,200 pounds. The 3.3-liter straight 8 had 135 horsepower or 190 horsepower supercharged, with the factory claimed 112 mile-an-hour top speed. In Germany for 1951, the 40 horsepower, 53 pound-feet of torque 1100cc Porsche 356 was joined by a 44 horsepower, 60 pound-feet of torque 1300 and 59 horsepower, 74 pound-feet of torque 1500. The faster coupe could do 60 in 13.5 seconds and top 100 miles an hour on its 83-inch wheelbase at 152 inches long and 1,800 pounds. The BMW 327 carried on until 1955 on its 108-inch wheelbase and 180-inch length, weighing 2,400 pounds, with a 2-liter inline 6 with 55 horsepower. After 15 years of production, 505 were built. The Italian Cisitalia 33DF was powered by a 69 horsepower, 59 pound-feet of torque 1100cc inline 4. With a 95-inch wheelbase and a total length of 161, it only weighed 1,600 pounds. 60 came in just over 13 seconds, with a top speed near 100. Ferrari's 225S, introduced in 1953, saw a total production of 21 on an 89-inch wheelbase with an overall length of 150 at 2,100 pounds. The 2.7-liter V12 pumped out 237 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque, allowing it to reach 60 in 6.5 seconds and a top speed near 145. Limited production numbers have ensured that all of these cars have become collectible, although some more than others. But as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.